Hello everybody, welcome back to Confederate Independence Timeline, Episode 3. Today we're going through the years of 1902 to 1922. Enjoy. One second, guys. Okay, sorry about that. And now let's get back to it. In 1902, President Roosevelt declares war on the Confederacy over the Confederate-Cuban War as the Cubans are under the U.S. protectorate. Makes sense. The Cubans revolt against Spain, with the rebels siding with the U.S. I think that's right. I could be wrong. I think that should be CS, but we'll find out later. It's explained later. President Roosevelt signs the Philippine Organic Act, ending the Philippine-American War. Another victory for the United States. Or the Union States, excuse me. In 1903, the USA forms the Department of Commerce and Labor, thanks Roosevelt. The Battle of the Guantanamo Bay, thousands die as there is no winner is declared. And now the 1903 Confederate election. Democrat industrialist Julian Carr defeats Whig Senator Jonathan Dolliver, 88 to 85, to become the 8th Confederate president. If you don't know who Julian Carr is, he's a part of the KKK. He's a staunch supporter of the KKK, joined the KKK and funded them heavily. So, not good. Not good at all. In 1904, the only major thing was the 1904 the U.S. presidential election, as Republican President Theodore Roosevelt defeats Reform Chief Judge Alton Parker, 238 to 59, to win re-election in a landslide. So there you go. In 1905, President Carr announces an embargo on Japan. Japan declares war against the Confederacy over this. But while this is going on, the Taft-Katsura Agreement is going on. So all three of these things are going on simultaneously, of course. So, of course, Russia and Japan are essentially working with the Union States right now as we go into the Confederate-Cuban War, as well will be known, the First World War, as World War I goes on. In 1906, the U.S. and CSA signs bills allowing eminent domain, increasing, power for the government to take public land, I guess you can say. And President Roosevelt passes the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Acts. President Carr sends the military to quell a race riot in Atlanta. So there you go. In 1907, the Confederacy invades Nebraska, Ohio, and Iowa, and the African American Revolution begins in the Confederacy. So they're fighting a 2 or 3 front race fight right now, the Confederacy is. In 1908, President Carr restricts Japanese immigration into the Confederacy, and some are put to death if they're caught entering the Confederacy. Yeah. President Carr meets with Russian Emperor St. Nicholas II. We don't know about this, what the contents of this is, but several weeks later, Russia invades Alaska Territory, switching sides. And then we have the 1908 presidential election. President Roosevelt goes for a third term because he thinks nobody can do the job better than him right now. And so Republican President Theodore Roosevelt defeats Reform Congressman William Bryan 194 to 100 to win re-election. That shouldn't say 26th. That shouldn't say 26th. In 1909, President Roosevelt increases military presence in both Cuba and Alaska. So there's his thing going on. And for the 1909 Confederate election, Whig Attorney General Joseph Cannon defeats Democrat Congressman George Gray 96 to 92 to become the 9th Confederate president, the first Whig to win an election in the Confederacy. This is big for the Whig Party. This is their first presence on the stage. In 1910, thousands die at the Battle of Cleveland. This is a U.S. victory. The Confederacy pushes into Cleveland, but the Union is able to push them back out. 1911, the Mexican Revolution begins, and the Confederacy sides with the rebels. So there you go. In 1912, the Americans force Russians out of the Alaskan Territory, so Roosevelt can tie up his little necktie, shine up his monocle, and twist his amazing beard. And we have the 1912 presidential election as Republican President Theodore Roosevelt defeats Reform Governor Thomas Marshall 329 to win re-election to a 4th term. Yeah, a 4th term. Would you look at that? And he wins big at this time after his victory in Alaska and Cleveland. In 1913, the 16th Amendment is passed in the United States in income tax, and the 17th Amendment is also passed in the United States, which is term limits. Roosevelt does not want to sign the 17th Amendment into law, but of course, some of his advisors say, come on, dude, your image is on the line. And the 18th Amendment is passed in the United States, which is the direct election of senators. The 13th Amendment passed in the Confederacy, which is also the direct election of senators. So that's a, like, full double country, by country, movement right there. In 1914, let me see here, Cuban rebels. Okay, yeah, Cuban, okay. So I was right. President Roosevelt sends troops to Mexico to stop the rebellion and Confederate interference. So there's another battle there. And war starts to erupt in Europe among most of the European country, and U.S. begins occupying Haiti, which a rebellion sparks of that. And as you can see here on the Central Powers for the Allied Powers and Central Powers, we have the Confederacy, Spain, Russia, the Mexican rebels, Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, and Haiti. On the Allied power sides, we have the U.S., Cuba, Japan, the Confederate rebels, or the African-American rebels, the slave rebellion, Mexico, France, Britain, and Italy. I almost said Italy for some reason. In 1915, President Camden sends a bill down to Congress that would allow white women to vote. Congress rejects the bill. So that's tried to do one last thing before this upcoming election, which is the 1950 Confederate election, which Democrat Governor Woodrow Wilson defeats Whig Governor Herbert Hadley 187-19 to become the 10th Confederate president. It's a landslide because, one, Cannon wasn't all that popular. He couldn't get anything done. He's a Whig president in an all-Democrat bicameral legislature, so there's that. So he wasn't all that popular. So Woodrow Wilson would win by a landslide. In 1916, the Cubans surrender to the Confederacy. The CSA annexes Cuba as per the 12th Amendment and focuses their attack on the Union States. And the Mexican rebels in the CS Army attack Nevada, so Nevada is on their hit list. President Wilson signs a bill that makes lynching a punishment for crimes. So there you go. If you commit a crime despite color, you are given the lynching punishment for certain things. And President Wilson signs the Owen Keating Act. Now, the 1960 Union States election, Reform Governor Thomas Marshall defeats Republican Vice President Charles Hughes 260-69 to become the 26th Union States president. I'm trying to figure out why, though. I had an explanation, I just can't remember. Let me see here. Well, oh yeah, I remember. It's because of 16 years of Roosevelt, they wanted change, and Thomas Marshall's like, yo, I'll run again, and they're like, okay, fine, I think you can do better. And Vice President Charles Evans Hughes just looks like a scary guy, and you don't want that running the country. You don't. You really don't. 1917, President Marshall declares war on the Cinch, unlike the rest of the Central Powers, which, after that, Canada, allied with Britain, would join the Allied powers to fight with them. And the 14th Amendment is passed in the Confederacy, which is 2 terms for the president. It increases it 2 terms. In 1918, President Wilson meets with the leaders of the nations involved in World War I and offers up his 14 points plan. And Mexican rebels overtake the government, and certain countries join the Confederacy. So as you can see here, these 4 countries right up in here, they end up joining America. I like this map. I just wish I could... If you guys know how I can make a map like this, but make it flat for, when I'm showing off the, electoral vote and all that, send it down to me in the comment section. Tell me if there's, any maps you'd like me to use for this that'll show, that will show that it would only show Cuba and these islands right here, where I can make it only show these 4 islands in the Confederate places right here. Could you do that for me? Thanks. In 1919, the 19th Amendment is passed in the United States, which is prohibition, as well as the 15th Amendment passes in the Confederacy, which is also prohibition. The 16th Amendment finally passes in the Confederacy, which gives white women the right to vote. Wilson's like, you know what, fine, I'll give white women the right to vote. Of course, and also Eurasia, Canada, and Haiti signed the Treaty of Versailles. However, the U.S. and CS continue the war, so it's only the Americas fighting right now. The Eurasian place in the islands in Canada, they're done. They're done. They're trying to figure out that. Germany still gets the punishment as it usually does. 1920, the first Red Scare occurs across both countries of America. President Marshall surrenders, ceding half of California to the Confederacy, and renames the upper half of California Jefferson. The state of Jefferson is now a thing. Neither the U.S. or CSA joins the League of Nations, as, Marshall's like, oh man, like, I'm going to lose anyway, so I'm not going to join. I'll let that to the next president. And the Confederacy doesn't like it, and because Woodrow Wilson didn't join in real time, so he wouldn't join now. And now we have the 1920 United States presidential election as Republican Senator Warren Harding defeats Reform President Thomas Marshall 307 to 15, the second time Marshall lost in a landslide, and Warren Harding becomes the 27th U.S. president. In 1921, World War I formally ends as President Harding and President Wilson sign an executive agreement to cease all fighting. The Five-Power Treaty is signed between America, Britain, Germany, France, Russia, America, both countries of America, Britain, France, and Russia. So the Five-Power Treaty is signed, which was actually called the Four-Power Treaty in our time. And of course, we have the 1921 presidential election as Democrat Secretary. He was the Secretary of Treasury under Woodrow Wilson. William McAdoo defeats Whig attorney Henry Anderson. There you go. And of course, Serona, Chihuahua, Durango, and I missed one Mexican province. I'm sorry about that. I forgot it. Those four will go to McAdoo, and Cuba goes to Anderson. So there you go. And finally, 1922, the Six-Power Naval Disarmament Treaty is signed between both countries of America, Britain, France, Germany, and Russia. So it was called the Five-Power Treaty. Now it's the Six-Power Treaty. And there you go, guys. That is the end of this video. I enjoy these series, these alternate history series. My teacher thinks I'm weird for it. But anyway, guys, this is the Chaotic One saying peace.